Hi, thanks for joining me today. I'm going to be doing a book review of a book called Magritte, A Life. I got this from a British bookseller, I think it was in Ireland. And so this is the cover that they have in Britain. American cover is different. We live in a golden age of artist biographies. There's just if you look at the last 20 or 30 years, just one after another, outstanding artist biographies. And they've just risen the level of artist biographies. If you have in the right hands and into a meticulous and thorough biographer, you can get these amazing biographies. So there's 10 chapters in this book. Now, 9 of them are written by Danchev. He died before he could finish the book. And Sarah Whitfield wrote chapter 10. Each chapter kind of has a theme, childhood, his family, his beginnings in art, his wife Georgette, the years of struggling, his friendships with people in Belgium, his dealings with the Paris Surrealists, his dealings with the Belgium Surrealists after the war. And one thing about Magritte, he wrote a lot, and Danchev says there's a 700-page book written in French of the stuff that Magritte wrote. And after I finished Danchev's book, I remembered that I had a volume by Magritte. This is an English version of Magritte's writings that I had read a couple of years ago, and it didn't really have too much effect on me. But then after I read Danchev's book, I went back and read this René Magritte selected writings, and wow, Danchev, he took the very best parts of this and he integrated it into his book, and he did an excellent job. So if you buy Danchev's book, you don't really need to buy this book because the best parts are in Danchev's book. So that was one thing. I'm just so impressed by Danchev's research, and there's just many very interesting facts and things that he discovered. Little small things that I kind of like that can reveal a lot about a personality, like Magritte. Of course, Magritte, a one-of-a-kind person. There'll never be another one like him. An eccentric, and just the things that the unusual things that he did. There's a cornucopia of eccentric things that Magritte expressed. When you get to the beginning, when he goes to the childhood and Magritte's father, he just had all these different careers. He's just a crazy guy. So then you bring in his mother, and she committed suicide. Danchev is very objective about the whole situation and explains it out, but me, I'm a little more judgmental. And I gotta say that she had to be a little bit crazy to marry Magritte's father, because he was I can't understand why any woman would marry this guy. But anyway, she married him, and this guy would drive you crazy. But then the story is that the family locked her in a room, and she was screaming to get out for help. And finally she escaped from the room and ran down to the river and threw herself in the river and drowned herself. I'm a judgmental person, and it's easy to say, oh, she's just a crazy person. They seem to enjoy cruelty. He's kind of Magritte, the young Magritte is kind of like a Pugsley Addams from the cartoon series, but a real scary Pugsley Addams, not just a funny laugh track Pugsley Addams from the Addams Family. As an example of one of their pranks, they used to go to the movies, and one of the things they did was they poured yeast down the toilet so that when the yeast interacted with the water, it expanded and all the noxious slime from the toilet came out, back up out of the toilet. And that was one of their great jokes. So that's the kind of guy Magritte was. He was a serious, cruel prankster. So when I approached the subject of his mother, I think they were cruel to her. I think they were cruel to her, and she may have had mental problems, but the way that they treated her, they exasperated her problems and made them worse. So then when you move on to Magritte, you know, he has a talent for the art, and he goes to art school, and then he meets Georgette, and there's a great love affair with them, and they're just inseparable for decades. She's so important to him. She sits in the room while he paints. Now, I have read stuff about other surrealists, and these weren't like pleasant people. You know, these people were, they championed each other for expressing their worst impulses. That was considered a great thing. So you got to remember that about surrealists. There's some real ugly stuff that they did. Another thing about eccentricity of Magritte, he had this very thick Belgian accent, and when he started to get more famous, some of his friends said, hey, you know, why don't you kind of think about how you're expressing yourself and kind of sound a little more intelligent? And he chastised them for that, and then he would continue to speak in his thick accent just to kind of annoy people. Danchev, it puts in a timely French joke here. He says, what's the difference between a potato and a man from Belgium? A potato is cultivated. So it is a very good book, and it's very easy for me to predict that this book will win some awards. You know, as far as my views on Magritte's work, I like Magritte's work, but they're kind of, because he's a very different person, and he explored an area in art that had never ever been explored. He just expanded the whole surrealism. He makes surrealism good. He's actually one of the better surrealists. He expanded surrealism and made it more substantial in art history. But at the same time, for me, his work is kind of like, it's not an optical illusion, it's kind of a mental illusion. So that when I look at it, I kind of get this twisty feeling in my head, similar to an optical illusion, but I would call it a mental illusion. And so you kind of get a sensation when you look at his stuff that you don't get with any other artist. And even though it's said that he was inspired by Chirico, there's a difference between the sensations I get when I look at a Magritte painting and the sensations I get when I look at a Giorgio de Chirico painting. But at the same time, there's kind of a cheapness to his tricks. And sometimes after I look at him, I kind of feel like I got manipulated. You know, let's say what it's not. It's not so spiritual. It doesn't have to do with the soul. It's very much art of the mind as opposed to art of the soul. So that's basically my review. I definitely recommend this book, but be prepared because you're going to be shocked by some of the things that you read in this book about Magritte. Thanks for watching.